And what I'm going to talk about today is software, and I'm going to level set a little bit here. I'm not going to talk about the bytes and the bits and how it gets made. It's boring. You guys don't want to hear about it. But I'm going to talk about how it's had a profound impact over the last 20, 30 years and where we're going today with it and some of the technologies that are out there, as well as what we need to do to continue this trend moving forward and have the United States continue to be a technology powerhouse. So in the beginning, I got my start second grade, and we had something called the computer club. And we had this room in the back of the school, and somehow there were about 20 Apple IIs there. And we were looking at floppy drives and saying, this is weird. And started to play with some games. I think there was a cool Winter Olympics game that they had, and you skied and played like biathlon and everything. It was quite interesting. And what was important is that it piqued curiosity. And from there on, I was hooked. And I started my career down in computer science. So as computers started to become more prevalent during the 90s, we saw a lot of applications, and these being put into both private and public sectors. Some of it worked great. For example, how many of you are aware of the Human Genome Project? So there's a funny story about how Perl, a software language, actually saved the Human Genome Project. So there were scientists in England, in Cambridge, and there were scientists in the United States. And they were both kind of working in silos. And they had genetic strings that today would have been about 3 gigabytes, so a good chunk on your iPhone. And they had no means of actually comparing their results. So at the end, there was the Perl programming language. And they started to develop scripts, and believe it or not, they finished the project with 2.5 years to go and significantly under budget. Raise your hand if you had a project that did that. So that's one of the cool effects of seeing software being applied in sciences today. However, it didn't always happen that way. Another great example is the Uss Yorktown. So this was a naval ship, and the US Navy in 1997 was thinking about how do we implement this technology and make smart ships. The only problem is that one of the software programs that they had built on Windows NT divided by 0, which, if you know anything about mathematics, that's impossible. However, this caused the entire submarine to crash. It was dead in the water. And it took them 2.5 hours to be able to reboot everything and be able to get the submarine operational. So thankfully, this was just a test exercise. This wasn't, they weren't blocking the Panama Canal or anything like that. But when you see how much of an impact software has had, in different industries, it had great intended effects with the Human Genome Project, but it also had some kind of scary moments and some things that needed to be kind of brought back to the drawing board and worked on. So that was the 90s. Let's fast forward to today. When we think about the cloud, we think about where are these servers? Where is all of these applications running? Where is my Facebook post going to? Where's my Twitter? Where's my tweets going to? It's interesting because we went from a philosophy of I have a company and I need to have all my servers inside an organization, protected. I need IT personnel and so forth. Now it's away from me. I don't have to worry about it. And what's nice about that is that young entrepreneurs, scientists, researchers, and so forth, don't have that barrier of cost anymore to get their ideas out and running. And there's actually a great software company called the Science Exchange that they've kind of taken this to a whole nother level. They're a software/biosciences company, and instead of having to, go to a lab and rent out space, they actually have an online marketplace where if I needed to run a sample and have a sample analysis done, I can sign up and have researchers do that for me. We're moving from what they call a capital expense model to an operational expense model, which is great because now ideas can start to flourish and we can now move to a much faster innovation cycle, which is great. Another thing is mobile. So now when we look at how, everyone in this room has a mobile device, I'm assuming. but we have mobile devices, we have tablets, we now have wearables coming out. We're now getting software pushed onto all different aspects of our life, which is fascinating, but also scary at the same time, because now we're all connected. We are a human network. And one of the unintended effects, if you think about, there was actually a great New York Times article that came out about how Siri, the digital assistant of the world today, is actually speaking to children with autism. And they're actually helping develop their communication skills because they're giving prompt answers. And usually when they ask some of the strangest things. So in the article, they were talking about different species of turtles. And Siri was able to look up that information and spit it right back. And the woman that wrote the article said she had the longest conversation with her child after working with Siri. And that's remarkable. Again, an unintended effect of software. And last but not least, social media. I think that with the current events going on in this country, and you see how folks are able to organize very quickly and be able to have protests and so forth. And it's not just happening in America. This is also happening in countries such as Egypt, Libya, Tunisia, where people have ideas and they want to come together and they want to be able to protest or organize, which is outstanding. A process like that before took a lot longer. So that's the present: cloud, mobile, social. So we're entering this digital age, and now we have to look towards where we're going. And there's some cool technology out there. You have some of the virtual reality. That's probably still a little ways off. But I have to admit, I'm a little concerned. And here's why. When we look at, when I was in second grade, I had that Apple II to go to, and I was fascinated by that technology. That set me going from a career, from curiosity to an eventual career in technology. What kind of scares me today, and there was some interesting statistics done by the Computer Science Teachers Association, that since 2005, actual classes being taught at the secondary school level has declined. And only 9 states actually recognize computer science as a part of their core curriculum. Otherwise, it's considered an elective such as gym or music, which is troubling when you think of everything that we've innovated since 2005. The iPhone, mobile, tablets, wearable devices. We're entering a digital age, but I don't know if we're properly setting the stage for our next generation to be able to embrace and innovate on that technology. So when we talk about education, what troubles me too is you look at a metric of proficiency, and in 2011, 3.2 million people took AP exams. 20,000 of those were AP computer science. And of those 20,000, 4,000 were women. And it's very easy for us to point the finger at the Facebooks, the Twitters, when they had those diversity reports that came out a couple months ago. But there is an underlying problem, and it's systemic. Are we handling this correctly at the education? Are we communicating and making sure that diversity in these disciplines, and it's not just technology, it's sciences across the board. But that's something that we need to look at, and we need to have reform across the board to be able to kind of future-proof this technology. So in closing, there's a couple of things that we can do now. Parents in the room, I think one of the things is try to look for that computer club. Look to see what your child is doing with the computer. The curiosity is there. We had 17-year-olds unlocking the iPhone after it came out, which caused a complete stir. But that curiosity is there, and we just need to make sure that we're trapping it and making sure that they're able to transform this into a career. Second, there's some great organizations out there for children to be able to embrace technology, embrace coding, and so forth. There's a Made with Code. It's actually a organization promoting women to start programming. They're actually doing a cool thing. I actually tweeted about it yesterday. You can actually go onto Google and you click a couple of buttons, and it actually creates a cool Christmas tree. And what you code actually shows this neat pattern as it comes down and it trickles down into, so check that out. I would strongly recommend that. Another great thing is there's great organizations out there, Code School. You know, if you want to just hit the ground running and just embrace the technology further, there's startups, as we talked about the cloud before, that are out there and are using their knowledge and sharing it with the world. And there's, you know, they're very interactive. It's quite remarkable when you think about it, because when you think 20, 30 years ago, trying to learn software, and how we've come today in being able to share that knowledge across the world, it's pretty impressive. So, and last but not least, if you have no interest in coding, there's still programs out there that you can do. For example, Stanford University actually has they just want to borrow your computer. So when you go to bed, you open up their website, and they actually use your computer to process calculations on protein folding, which has led to helping decode and understand diseases such as Huntington's, Alzheimer's, type 2 diabetes, and cancer. So they're doing a lot of that research, and it's being distributed across a bunch of computers. It's a lot of calculations and so forth, but you know, that's how you can contribute back. So in closing, I appreciate the time. I wanted to talk about the importance of technology over, you know, the past 20, 30 years, where we are today, and what we really need to do to make sure that we have this going forward. Thank you.